Today we are talking all about the Blackstone Griddle, which seems to have taken over the camping food world. Seems like everyone is talking about this thing, everyone loves it, and so naturally I had to give it a try because we got a ton of camping food content going on this channel. So I really wanted to see what all the hype was about here. So I'm going to share my thoughts and what I think the pros and cons of the Blackstone are. Before we dive in, just to be clear, this video is not sponsored. This is something that I purchased myself because I just genuinely wanted to try it. And so these are my honest thoughts. I have a 22-inch Blackstone, but this is not the original one that I purchased. I first got a 22-inch one from Costco. I saw it at Costco and it happened to be on sale, so I thought, okay, this is a great opportunity for me to buy this thing and give it a try. Brought it home and it sat in my living room for a while, and I just kept thinking, man, this thing is big and it's also really heavy. And I realized after I'd bought it that I also was going to need to then spend probably about another $100 on a stand to put it on. So I ended up not using that one and returning it and getting this one instead, which is their On The Go series. And I got this at Scheels. This one comes with a stand and these wheels, and so you can kind of break it down and wheel it to and from the car to the campsite. So that kind of brings me to my first con, or just thing that I would definitely consider, is the bulkiness and the weight of this thing. I'm pretty sure this model is around 80 pounds. So yes, it has the wheels and it breaks down nice, but like lifting this in and out of the car is not something that I can do. And so that's something to consider, is just the mobility of this thing, the weight, and how much space it's going to take up in the vehicle. We have a truck, so that really wasn't a big issue for us, but it is heavy and it is really bulky. I went into it not thinking that I was going to like it just because of that reason. I'm very used to just having a basic little 2-burner propane camp stove. I love that, use that forever, and it's worked great for decades of camping between me and Nick combined. So kind of upgrading to this thing that's so much bigger and bulkier, I kind of was thinking maybe I wouldn't like it, but I wanted to give it a try. So that, I would say, is one of the biggest cons. Let's go to what I think is one of the biggest pros, and that is the big cook surface. That is, I think, the reason to get these things. Now, there are so many different models of Blackstones. I actually found it very confusing trying to determine like the different series that they have, because a lot of them look the same and it was just a little bit unclear. But this is, I think, a really great size. It's a 22-inch, like I said earlier. And I think if you're going to get a Blackstone, that's the biggest pro, is that you have a big cook surface. So you can cook an entire meal for a large group of campers all at once. Everything can be hot. So if you have a large group of campers or a big family, then this thing might get a ton of use and might make it a lot quicker and faster to pump out meals for everyone that you're camping with. So that, to me, is the biggest pro of the Blackstone, is this wonderful big cooking surface. This one also has 2 burners, so you can see here, which is another thing that I really enjoy. You can have different temperatures on each side depending on what you're cooking. So if maybe I have meat over here and veggies over here that I want at a lower temp, I can do that. Or I want to just kind of keep something warm off to the side. I have a lot of options and control with 2 different sides to heat on. Some other things that I really like about the Blackstone is it is very similar to cast iron. So if you love cooking in cast iron like I do, then this functions pretty similarly. It has great heat retention. It's very easy to clean and maintain. And I have found that you can cook a wide variety of meals on here. So no problem cooking just on this thing for breakfast, lunch, and dinner throughout a camping trip. There's tons of things that you can do with this. I would say the one thing that you can't do is cook anything that requires a pot. And so that goes back to more of a normal propane stove setup. I can use a pot on that and I can cook plenty of 1-pot meals. I can use my cast iron pan. And so there's a little bit more, I would say, versatility in the things that you can cook. But that being said, there are so many things that you can cook on just this thing alone. But that does bring me to another kind of point, is we had to pack a little stove to boil water on. So if we want to make tea or coffee in the morning, I needed to pack something else in order to be able to boil water. And so that's just something to think about. You know, when you're camping, do you want to be packing tons and tons of gear for different things? So the fact that it's not very easy to boil water on here and that I need a separate thing to do that might be a bit of a con. We're kind of always packing at least our little portable, it's kind of like a jet boil, it's Camp Chef version of a jet boil. And so that's really easy to boil water on, and it's small. So we've been using that on this trip for making coffees and teas and things like that. But again, if you have just a propane stove, you can easily do that without any additional gear. It is a windy day here at the camper, which reminded me of another con that we've come across with the Blackstone, and that is that it does not function very well in the wind. I would say most propane stoves are going to be not as efficient in the wind, of course, but my little 2-burner stove that I normally use, I would say does better in the wind than the Blackstone. So that's just something to consider. Okay, so I've been thinking a lot about how I wanted to wrap up this review. We have continued to use the Blackstone since I originally filmed this review. And honestly, overall, I'm just torn on my review. I have really enjoyed cooking on the Blackstone. We've cooked delicious meals, it's been fun, and I think if you have a large group of campers or a big family that you're constantly cooking for, the Blackstone might be a great fit for you. We camped with Nick's brothers last year, and the Blackstone would have been perfect for that trip because I could not pump out pancakes fast enough on my cast iron pan to feed all of those guys. So really that having that big cook surface, I think could be a huge benefit depending on your situation. Now, if you only camp a few times a year, you have a smaller budget to invest in camp cooking gear, or you just not really cooking for big groups, then I'm not sure the Blackstone is the best fit. The classic 2-burner propane stove with a cast iron pan and a pot is so versatile. You can cook so many delicious meals on there. It's a lot cheaper to get into, and it's smaller and lighter to transport. Over on my website, amandaoutside.com, I have tons of free printable recipes that you can cook with a simple 2-burner propane stove. Propane stoves have a huge range of prices. I think one of the cheaper Coleman ones at Walmart is about $50, and then they can go all the way up to a couple $100 for some of the more premium ones. But there is a bigger range depending on what your budget is. This was a really long trip and the first time that I was going to be bringing the Blackstone, so I decided to just bring all of my camp cooking gear. I have the Blackstone with me, I have my 2-burner propane stove, and I have my little travel propane stove. That is a lot of gear to be bringing on camping trips. I don't want to have to pack that along on every single one of my trips. There have been nights on this trip where I really just wanted a pasta dish or a mac and cheese, something cooked in a pot really simply over the propane stove. We've been using the Blackstone pretty much, I would say 90% of the time, but we have taken out our other stove to cook pasta and mac and cheese. So I don't know, it just seems like a lot of gear to be packing for a camping trip. I'm trying to be really intentional about the things that I buy, and I am a little bit worried that the Blackstone is gonna kind of fall into the category of something that just sits in storage and doesn't really get a lot of use. If you are planning to use the Blackstone all the time at home as well, then maybe it would make sense to buy it and also use it for camping because you're going to get a ton of use out of that. I hope this video has still been helpful. I feel like it's a little all over the place and not as clear, but there's so many different things that you can factor into the gear that you want to buy for camping. You know, the size, the weight, the space you have to store it and move it around, your budget, the group size that you're camping with. And so for some, it might be a great fit. For me, I feel like I kind of fall in the middle. Now, I do want to wrap up this video showing you some of the things that we have been cooking the last couple of weeks on the Blackstone. Like I said earlier, it has been fun and we've cooked a lot of delicious meals. One of my favorite things to cook on this is a Blackstone fried rice. I've done fajitas, we've done stir fries, tons of burgers on here, just a good variety of things. And then for breakfast, we've done pancakes, eggs, bacon. If you do have a Blackstone, I would love to know 2 things. 1, what are your thoughts? Do you love it? Why do you love it? And then 2, what is your favorite thing to cook on it? I thought it'd be fun in the comments to just have a ton of ideas to cook on the Blackstone when you're camping. So share with everyone in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.